is a journey connecting the music with the people that inspire us. You're listening to the Sounds of Success podcast with your host, Jim Lombardo. Brought to you by the Rising Tide Foundation. Let's jump right in.
I'm excited to get started. Recording with us today is Cory Zelnik, founder and CEO of Zelnik Company, specializing in retail, real estate needs of property owners and nationwide retailers. Cory, welcome to the studio.
Hey, Jim, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Sound check. Check one, check two.
We're going to do that sound check by revealing a song that we think captures you, your nature, and your personality.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So we're going to go back to 1968.
Okay.
Definitely a few years before you were born, right?
No.
And we're going to go to the Beggar's Banquet album by the Rolling Stones.
Okay.
A really spectacular album. It's the 7th song off that album, and the song is Street Fightin' Man. Couldn't possibly be a better song to encapsulate a dynamic man like you. So what do you think? Did we nail that? Is that the right one? Is that the one?
I will take your word for it. I'm not familiar with the album or the song.
Yes, you are. You are 100%. You know that song, but the problem is that we don't have the money or the budget to pay for the licensing. But I'm 100% sure you know that song.
You have the money. You just don't want to admit it.
That's correct. I don't want to spend it. I'm not going to spend it. Well, I spent it for other guests, but I held off. Okay?
I'm not your first guest.
No, you're not. So, okay, I feel good about the sound check. You, Cory, giving in a single sentence how you would describe Zelnik Company.
Zelnik Company is a retail leasing brokerage company that specializes in expanding national tenants throughout the New York City metropolitan area, as well as representing landlords to fill their vacant spaces.
Wow, you get an award for doing it in one sentence. That's incredible. I love that.
You asked for one sentence.
Well, I know I did, but that doesn't necessarily mean anyone has done it yet. So, okay. So now how would you describe your role?
Well, I'm the founder and CEO of the company. I interact on a daily basis with landlords, with tenants, as well as the young brokers who I have working for the firm.
I love it. Let me just, Steve, how's that?
You're good to go. Mike's good.
Okay, we're good now. The equipment looks good. The mic is great. The sound sounds great. And if you're okay with that, we're going to start laying down some tracks.
Let's rock and roll.
All right, Jim. Let's lay down track one and get that backstory.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Talk to me.
That was Tone Loc.
Talk to me. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in New York City, spent the first 10 years of my life in Queens, New York. My folks divorced, unfortunately, at the time. And I went to summer camp on a bus from Queens, New York. And when I came back from summer camp in August, I lived in Manhattan. My mother met a wonderful gentleman who she married, and we lived in Manhattan from then on. So I've been in Manhattan for the very large majority of my life.
Okay, so that's interesting. So tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your childhood?
I would rate my childhood a solid 8. Had some bumps and bruises along the way, like most do. Fortunately, no, calamities. The divorce hurt.
What age was that?
I was about 10 years old when my folks divorced. That hurt a lot. I was a boy who was very fond of his father, the father moved out, it was an early stage of life and trying to grasp that and understand that. And I went through some things, and it took a while to work through that. But, again, thankfully, no tragedies, true tragedies. And, I think I'm a solid 8, maybe 7, 8, solid 8.
All right. Thank you for the honesty, though. I appreciate that. So
Of
talk
course.
to me a little bit about Cory as a teenager. What's going on? What are you thinking about? What are you curious about?
I am curious. Well, my interests were probably 99% sports. I played almost all the sports. And then on a social level, it was girls. It was sports and girls, sports and girls.
It's a great foundation for what you're doing now.
100%.
So talk to me a little bit about jobs. Did you have any jobs?
Uh, I went to summer camp as a kid. I went to sleepaway camp, and I enjoyed it tremendously. I have friends now for 40 and 45 years that I went to summer camp with. It was a great thing for me socially. I truly enjoyed it. So much so that when you hit 16 and you basically graduate from being a camper, I stayed on to be a junior counselor, and then I was a counselor for a couple of years. So those were the actual only paying jobs I had at that time. And then I went on to finish college. And then when I came out of college, I went to work.
Interesting. So how was that experience? Was that a good job? Did you learn anything from that, or was it just kind of
I think that, when I look back at it, upon it, I should say, I have, I don't want to say regret. I'm not sure that was the right decision to do it. I wound up doing it for like 4 years. I'm not sure that was in the best interest of my personal professional growth. I think that I probably should have done it for the 1 or 2 years, and then after that, maybe got an internship somewhere in the real world, for lack of a better term. But on a personal and social level, it was tremendous. I think it was. I love kids. I think it helps me a lot, especially when I'm bringing along young brokers.
right?
That experience. Back in camp, it was bringing the kids along from teaching them whether it's baseball or basketball or what have you on the sports side, but socially getting along, right? All the young boys going through their stuff with young girls and life and things. And, look, there was always, one or two kids who had their issues at home, whether it was divorce or stuff, and you had to take them through that. So I look back at that with great fondness for what I went through, but on a professional level, again, not a full on regret. I just probably should have done it a little bit differently.
How so?
In that I probably should have been a counselor for 1 or 2 years and not 4.
Right,
And
right.
in those back 2 years when I was already in college, and again, look, this is a long time ago and it's not an excuse, but like today, the kids, I see it because I live it running a company. These kids are well versed in, as a sophomore or a junior, get an internship, get experience, pad the resume, blah blah blah. And I've said this often. I don't cast blame on my parents for lack of guidance or whatever, but I probably should have gotten an internship here or there, and maybe it changes the path. Certainly initially, when I graduated school.
Yeah, that's a great point. So it actually dovetails right down to the next question. What about influences? Did you have anyone or anything that kind of influenced you as growing up?
I think I had one person who was very important to me, and I met him through camp. He was, he ran the boys side. It was a co-ed camp, boys and girls, and he was basically a camp director who, I had gotten to know when I was a camper, and then as I evolved into a counselor, and so he taught me a lot about discipline and organization. Even at the camp level, which still exists with me today.
Interesting.
And so that really stuck with me.
Any specific takeaway?
Well, I mean, the organization and the discipline are the broad scope takeaways, but like he was always a guy, I make a list every day. I make a note.
Okay.
I mean, I know we all have phones and all that stuff. And my wife and I joke, she needs a reminder for herself. She goes to the notes section on her phone and she puts it in the notes.
Mm-hmm.
I need to remind myself of something. I write a handwritten note.
Nice. Okay.
And more often than not, she'll forget to go back to the app where I have the piece of paper.
Right.
And so what I do gets done.
Right. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you ever lie to your parents or someone you loved?
Well, I mean, it's a pretty deep question.
Something big, though. Something big where
are you ready to go deep?
well, let's go.
Well, I lied to my ex-wife,
Okay.
and it wound up leading, essentially led to my divorce.
Interesting. But now, so what do you make of that?
Well, I've learned from it. Certainly,
Sure.
it certainly put me in it put me in a rough place, and it put unfortunately her, and it affected my daughter,
Yeah.
and there's some after effects to it all. So because the lie doesn't go away, you just have to you personally, and I've personally grown from it for sure. But it has lasting effect, and I feel that it's one of the I don't know that I have many regrets, but that's certainly one of them.
Yeah. What?
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about Cory in the 20s. Okay, growing up. So was there a turning point where you started to lean toward the real estate that you're in today?
Actually, no, there was no real turning point. When I came out of college, and I just had a basic liberal arts degree from the University of Maryland, no business, no anything. And again, not casting blame upon my parents or anybody else. I just thought I was going to come out of Maryland and go get a job on Wall Street.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of thing. And then, certainly reality hit when I came out and got nothing. And, this is 86 and there were, market conditions or whatever. And I couldn't even get, like an on the floor job for $20,000 a year. I wound up, a friend of mine, I guess it was probably the first stroke of good fortune, where a friend of mine was working at a real estate brokerage company, and it was like the only one at the time that was focused on retail. And again, I didn't have any mindset for retail, real estate, or anything, quite frankly. And he goes, look, they're looking for somebody. He was working in the Long Island division of the company. And he said to me, a position opened up. They need somebody in Manhattan. And, come in and meet the guy. And I met the guy, and I took a job for $250 a week to literally walk the streets of New York City. And that was really the start of my retail leasing career.
Track 2, Sound of Now.
We can do it? Okay. We can run down and we can put the second track down. How do you differentiate yourself in this crowded market? Because you're not the only one doing this. How do you differentiate yourself?
Well, to the point of not the only one doing it. I mean, I had a meeting this morning where we were just talking about the business in general, and it's sort of a joke. New York State will license anybody. So there's the thousands of people doing what I do, and what have you. So what I try to do to differentiate myself at this stage of life is, I personalize things with my experience. I'm front facing in terms of my organization. So when my brokers are out there doing whatever they are doing to procure business, I help them. I get in front of people. I still stick with the mantra of we're the guys who will roll up their sleeves. We're the guys that will be in it for the long haul. And proof of that is representing one of the largest landlords here in New York, independent landlords here in New York City for 23 plus years. Part of that is representing one of the largest QSRs, quick service restaurant chains in America, called Panda Express. Okay, I represent them for 18 years. It took 8 years to make the first deal because it was 8 years of rolling your sleeves up, providing them information, things like that. And so that's what we do, and we get involved, and we're principle driven, which is me, and I'll be involved and I'll oversee. Can I do everything? Of course not. But I'm very, very hands-on, and we're not going to be, the CBREs, the JLLs, the Newmarks, that can put 26 people in front of you and have all kinds of gizmos and things like that and say, look who we are, blah, blah, blah. We're the guys that, one, we're built with the proper technology for our marketplace today. That's whether it's AI or the various software programs that are available to us, so we can compete at that level. Those are all the things that are available to everybody. We utilize those things, but most importantly, you get me.
Stop. Hard stop, mic drop right there. You get me.
It is a music.
So,
It is a music show.
what about behind the scenes? What happens behind the scenes that the public just doesn't know?
Well, it's funny how you put that. I always like to, Stephanie, who you semi met, getting this organized. I always joke with her, especially when it comes to our business, even when it comes to our podcast, that our great cliche. You ought to work on your lighting over there, by the way.
Yeah.
The
It's not lighting. It's a Word doc.
Okay.
Hey man, we're on a shoestring budget over here.
Turn your emails off. So I always tell her, I said, we always joke about they don't want to know how the sausage is made.
Right.
And that's what we're about, because Stephanie's great at what she does from a marketing perspective. And so when we have to do things for clients, be it landlord or tenant, we get it done. It's photos, it's maps, it's demographics, it's whatever the case may be. And then we put out a product.
Yeah.
And it's the same with our podcast. When we do our podcast, you wouldn't know, but we figure it out. Yeah. And so we're very good at that.
Yeah. Like the lighting issue.
Exactly.
It happens, right?
I'm not having a light.
Well, no, of course not. I mean, see that?
When is
bulbs are going out. Okay. So is there anything that this is a pretty typical question, but is there anything now that you wish you could go back in time and tell your younger self?
Yeah, I would have liked to have been more absorbent of the guidance, which was, hey, persistence, consistency, discipline, and patience. Because those are the things that I preach today. They were told to me then, but I was anxious and young.
Yeah.
And so, some of it set me off path, but I would have liked to have been better at those things then.
Did you ever get any bad advice?
I don't think I've gotten bad advice. And maybe part of that is not having looked too far for advice.
Right.
One of the things I look back on also in my career is that I never really had many mentors, and that's something that I feel like I missed out on. So I make a concerted effort, to the extent that I can, to mentor others. I mean,
did you look for mentors and they just weren't there, or did you keep? Tell me more about that.
Well, like in track 1, when we were talking about camp and the takeaway, that the gentleman who I referred to there, he was a mentor. He was, he grabbed hold of me and I grabbed hold of him, kind of thing. And he was a mentor to me, taught me a lot of things, life stuff, discipline stuff, things like that. But in the business world, for better or for worse, I wound up in my growth. I was working with some very, really good brokers. If you looked at the history of the business, the guys that are top tier brokers, but that's what they were. They were brokers.
Right.
They weren't mentors or educators or things like that. I worked for him. So someone says, oh, that's cool, you work for him, whatever. But there was no real, grab hold of Cory kind of thing. And I didn't find the opening for me to grab hold of, Robert or Jeff or whoever they were at the time. I had a good educator at one part of my career when I worked for CVS Pharmacy in-house as a real estate director. I told them when I was there for 3 years, and when I left the company, I told my boss at the time, I said, thank you for a master's class in retail real estate. And it was great, but he wasn't a mentor.
Yeah.
He was a great guy.
Yeah.
He taught me a lot of good things, but the personal aspect wasn't there to create what I would call a mentorship.
I love to lean into this mentorship a little bit. Is it the rare person that gets someone to take them under their wing?
I don't think so. I think that it's the person, on the one hand, seeks out the other, right? The more often than not older person, more experienced person, and presents himself in a manner of wanting
Right.
to be a
Right.
mentor.
But it's
You know, sometimes
there's a match though, right? It's
yeah,
gotta be the person that wants and the person that gives, right?
100%.
So there's it seems like that can miss the mark sometimes, and then we end up getting older and evolving and evolving and evolving, and we seem to miss that a little bit.
You know, now that I think back about this, and he was not a verbal mentor, but I had the great good fortune. It took me a long time to grasp. This is very deep stuff, but it took me a long time to grasp this. But my stepfather, the gentleman my mother remarried, and he passed away about 15 years ago. So, but he was, you know, from a discipline perspective, but never saying a word. He was like the quiet type. He was the quiet. He was a mechanical electrical engineer. He was and just did his thing. He was brilliant. Okay. And he just went about it every single day. And to the point where he was 80 years old, and he needed my office to come in and put out resumes. And at 82 years old, he got a job with the city.
Wow.
Because they just needed his brain, right? And so it wasn't physical. And so I always talk about it because my dad was it was up, and I never got any discipline or anything out of my dad, but I got it through silence and just watching. And that's how I did a lot of my things. I was very good at observing, taking away, whether it was a move on the basketball court or something. But with my stepdad, he just went and he just did. And like I said, he was in a cubicle in my office.
That's great.
Because he was running his own company. He was running his own company, but he got too old for that. And then, you know, he, because of his brain, got hired by the city at 82 years old, taking the subway and going to work downtown at a city building and doing his thing. And, you know, it was crazy. But that's a guy, I should have mentioned him more as a mentor. I should think about that more. But he was that guy, you know, without saying a word.
So, Cory, in your experience, what do you think is more important, resilience or adaptability?
The type of business that I'm in really requires both. I know that's a politician's answer to that question, but you need both. You need both. You need resilience and you need to be adaptable because you do the same thing on a daily basis, but you do it differently on a daily basis, just the same. You know, different tenants, different requirements, different landlords, different needs, and things like that. So that's where the adaptability comes in. But you have to be resilient in your pursuit of getting those things done.
How do you cultivate those? You do anything purposefully to cultivate it?
I think the only thing you could do purposely for that is to really be on a really disciplined and organized track. You have to set yourself up for that, you know, because and I mentioned this earlier, you know, discipline, organization, patience, you know, the key to my business is key to most businesses, quite frankly, but you have to have that. And that will lead into your ability to adapt and adjust when necessary and your ability to, you know, stay as resilient as you need to stay.
What about self-doubt? You ever deal with that?
All the time. All the time. I should say all the time. I did often, you know, obviously I've been around the block a little bit, but every now and again it steps in. But I'm a very positive, very pro good, you know, thinker in terms of my planning so I do it as best I can to avoid the self-doubt. I get, you know, there are doubts sometimes transactionally because I'm in a business where, as a broker, my responsibility is to bring two parties together. So I never sign the lease on behalf of the landlord. I never sign the lease on behalf of the tenant. I have to bring them together. So sometimes there are doubts transactionally, but I'm
doubting yourself or doubting the deal.
In the deal,
yeah.
I don't doubt myself. I think I do. And again, from experience, you know, I think that, you know, I'd like to think that the effort we put forth eliminate some of that self-doubt.
Did you ever have a deal that went south and you blamed yourself for it?
Oh, yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Oh yeah.
How do you handle it? Just
Um, early on in my career, I would probably say less well. Today, at this stage, I'm much more and I don't know if you know who Coach Krzyzewski
sure.
is. Okay, he's got one of his very famous quotes is "next play,"
Yeah.
and so I adapted that mentality, a while ago, and that's what it's about. You just because we're transaction driven. That's how we make a living. And if you can't go to the next play and you're wallowing in your, on
On
what
the loss,
happened, then
right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
how do you get
Yeah.
focused on what's next? Because the loss is the loss. You're not getting paid. Move on. You got to go to the next play, next deal, right? To go make your money.
Yeah. What about personal development? You're running a business. What are you doing? You
Okay.
doing anything specific on personal development to help you grow as a leader?
I have primarily I've gotten more involved. This is remember the phrase when COVID hit, you got to pivot,
Yeah.
right? So my big pivot when COVID hit was social media and our group here, whether it's on Instagram or LinkedIn or X or what have you, I started to utilize that. And through that, I have seeked out and come across combination of people that are very successful in their areas of real estate or just professionally. And I have even at this stage of life, seeked out what I would call
Yeah.
mentors. And I've spoken to them and I've asked questions. I am not a voracious reader. Although I have some books that I need to catch up on, I just have a hard time going to the book. I will check out a podcast from time to time and try to pick up some nits and chits on some things from some people based upon their experiences. And so that's what I do to try to continuously, like you say, personal growth from a mind perspective on the, physical personal growth. You know me, I'm a runner and I do all my exercising. So I'm good in that regard. But on the personal side, I think that I am a good
Yeah.
learner. I learn through actions.
What's what's a hard decision that you've made in the last year? And how did it affect you, the business? Anything stand out?
I haven't, we make, you make decisions every day, right? You're running a business. You got to make certain decisions on a regular basis. Um,
Nothing
I
big?
haven't had like that, nothing really big, life altering, business altering, or things like that. You know, on the flattery type scale, I had a couple of big firms still taking a look at me, and I've said no to them, but I would not put that on the big
Yeah, yeah.
decision table.
Right. Anything you'd change? A path maybe you could have taken? Curious how that would have played out?
Um, I think because I've only been around the retail real estate business, I would just think about things I might have changed early on within
Mm-hmm.
this, where I may have been a little bit more focused on the learning. I feel like I have a much more concerted effort over the last 5 years or so to learn. I thought I was young and stupid, as maybe we all were. I don't know, but I was young and stupid and thought I knew everything. And so I attacked some things as opposed to sort of taking pause, learning a little bit, and then going after. And so I lack some of that discipline. And I go back to my phrase from earlier. I don't blame it on anybody. I just, took my
Yeah.
lumps, took my bumps and bruises uh, out of anxiousness.
Where do you see the firm in the next 5 years?
Um, we're on a path of consistent growth in terms of opportunity. We're seeing new business come in. The business, it's oftentimes hard to convince people to come into a business where you don't get paid. I like to say, I wake up unemployed every day, and that's appealing to me because I've been doing it for so long. But for the kid who's 22 or 23, a little bit of a hard sell. I'd like to bring in some more people that are a little bit more experienced, so I don't have to spend too much time literally educating them. But I'm in an industry, and maybe you see it in yours just the same. That person that's that experienced or just a little experienced, they're getting a signing bonus
Yeah.
check from one of the big companies to go join, and I can't compete in that realm. Although if I get somebody and I own 100% of the company. If someone is qualified, I could maybe offer an equity piece sort of down the road. But at this stage, from a career and a peer group perspective, most of my peers are owners of their own companies. They're partners at larger companies and things like that. So I'm not recruiting them. And I oftentimes look to my brokers. There are eight of them. I say to them, tell me who's out there. I'm not going to meet the person who's their age. I'm not going to see that the person that they're talking to is going to be a name on a piece of paper. Their bosses are going to call me if need be. So it's hard the recruiting's a little challenging, but I'm constantly looking at it. And the company's continuing to grow from a leasing perspective. And then adjunct, we're working on acquisitions now and things like that. So I think it's an onward path. People often say to me, what's your exit strategy? I think they love that phrase. What's your exit strategy? And I say, I have no exit strategy. And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I say, it's because I have an opportunity strategy. Because I sit where I sit, I see opportunities to invest in properties. I sat here doing what I do best. And someone said to me, hey, Cory, we're buying a shopping center. You want to be a part of it? So I'm in a handful of those things because of where I sit. I have a side business in single family homes that came about because I sit where I sit. And so I look at it from an opportunity strategy perspective. So I don't know that I'm going anywhere fast.
You think big. You do. And I'm curious, is there a big thing you're thinking about right now?
Yeah, I'm thinking big on the acquisition side. I think there's opportunity out there. And so I am looking at, more and more things to the extent that I can without dropping the ball on what is my day-to-day bread and butter.
Makes sense. Could you share a moment where the situation is so absurd you just have to laugh?
Well, I'm going to bob and weave a little bit because I feel like, you grow up in this city and, literally grow up, and then you work your entire career in this city. And to a certain degree, you feel like you've seen everything.
Right.
And, to the point where, we were looking at it, one of my guys was out canvassing, walking the streets, doing his diligence, looking at properties and things like that, and sent back a video of a naked woman in the middle of the street, in the middle of the day. So, I shake my head a little bit, but then I take that and I'm like, okay, next play.
Yeah, I hear you.
I rarely get shook. It's just too
that's
much.
great. That's good though. That's great. Yeah. So that this is a podcast about success, leaning into music. So how do you define success?
There's certainly an economic basis to success, but I think quite frankly, most importantly, you got to wake up and be happy what you're doing and enjoy what you're doing. The money leads to material, and certainly there are material things that we like, whether they're crossover double monk shoes or what have you.
Where do you get those?
But you got to be happy. Paul Smith, you have to be happy with what you're doing. And I like I said, I wake up unemployed every single day, and I wake up with a smile on my face.
Right.
And I go and I'm excited. I'm excited every single day. I enjoy what I'm doing. I'm very good at compartmentalizing certain things, right? Because something's going to, you got work to do. You got to go do it. But then there may be something going on at home and you got to deal with that. But I'm very good about breaking that stuff up and not losing sight of what the day-to-day plan is. So I attack every day with happiness.
I think you're answering this, but do you feel successful?
I feel successful because I just, like you said, I answered it. I'm happy in what I'm doing. More success will come with more deals and things like that. But again, that's monetary.
So the economic
Although
aspect of success. So you're compartmentalizing success, economic enjoyment,
yeah,
right?
because I will tell you that when my kid here, one of my young kids here, makes his first deal, man,
Yeah,
I am
yeah,
so freaking
yeah,
happy. I am so happy. It's not a lot of money because that's the nature of the beast. When someone's stepping in, they're not going to make that big deal. It is my happiest day when that kid makes that deal. I feel great every time one of my guys makes their own deal, especially when it's purely standalone, right? A lot of them out of the gate, they're going to work with me and, I'm going to be there and I'm going to be a big part of it. But when I'm here and I'm just helping them along, quick question, how do I handle this? How do I handle that? And then they make that deal. There's the only one happier than me is that
yeah,
kid's mother.
yeah.
And that to me is success.
Jim, this is really shaping up. Let's talk about liner notes.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. First name only. Who's the closest person to you? Charlie. So if we ask Charlie to describe your quirks and your weird habits, what does Charlie say?
He may not know all of them, but he'll say,
You pick Charlie.
he's a
You pick
freak.
Charlie.
Yeah, no, but I don't. He's a good friend. He's a good friend of mine. But from a quirk perspective, I don't know that many people know most of them. I would have to say Jessica, which would be my wife. But she would go with my lunacy of getting up at 3:45 every morning. Although I rarely do because I don't want the alarm to get off, so I wind up getting up at like 3:20. And then you have those other mornings like 2 days ago when I was up at 2:20 for some reason, and then I just go and I get excited about the day. I think about there are theories that say you don't sit in bed and toss and turn and think about it. Just get the up, and I get
like that
up and I go.
Yeah, it's good.
So you'll hear some things like that. There are certain OCD aspects of who I am and what I am. You'd hear things like that. Although I think that's calmed down. I was able to control myself without medication. But
okay, give me one. Give me one.
Years ago, I was single. I hadn't gotten married for the first time even, and I'd go through a routine where I would have to touch every single thing in my medicine cabinet. And then when I'd walk out, I had this series of like folding closet doors, like along the hallway. I'd have to tap every single one. And then when I'd lock the door, I'd have to turn it to the right and to the left and to the right and then make sure it's locked and stupid like that. I was insane about that. And I put a tremendous focus on changing that. But there are still certain things that I do that are ritualistic that I can't get away from.
Is that more watered down now because you've worked on it, or is it just kind of faded away over time?
No, I think it's a combination of watered down and faded away.
Yeah.
I don't touch everything in the medicine cabinet and stuff like that. I always put the right shoe on first, no matter what.
You can't choose running for this next question, okay? Because it's clearly a passion for you. But when you need to hit the reset button, what's your go-to zone out activity?
If I have the opportunity, if I could just put a ball game on and just get lost in a ball game, if I could put on, a movie that I always liked that I've already seen 26 times, I would watch it for the 27th time. If I could throw Godfather 1 in, and just get lost in it for 3.5 hours, that kind of thing.
Great. Okay, so dead or alive, who do you have lunch with?
Michael Jordan.
Okay. No, you can only pick one. You can only pick one. I mean, this is
just one?
This is a big table, I guess. Okay, which one are you going to go with? Are you going to go with?
No, I would go. I didn't realize it was just one.
Well, who would you go to lunch with? But yeah, I suppose that I'll have to be more specific next time. But let's go with one, because there's a follow-up question.
You know what? follow. I would go with Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant. Okay. You're sitting at the table. God rest his soul. Wonderful lunch. The bill comes. Who pays?
I always reach.
Love it. So even if Kobe's going for it, you're paying.
I'm paying for it. Or, if we get into that kind of wrestling match and we split it because we had a great lunch together, that's fine too. But I'm not taking the
Got
freebie.
it. Love it. So money or meaning?
Meaning.
You mentioned Godfather. But let's go here. You said you don't read a lot, but there's a book that you said you were having trouble getting through. What's that book?
It's not about, I don't have one particular book that I have trouble getting through. It's the art of reading that I have trouble with.
Okay, so if you had to give a book as a gift, what would it be?
Success Through Stillness.
Okay.
By Russell Simmons.
I like that. Okay, what about movie? I think you alluded to it.
By the way, did you notice?
I did see that. It was not lost on me. What about movie? You alluded to it before, but which one do you think everybody has to see?
Rocky 1.
Excellent. I love that. It's great. Why do you pick Rocky 1? Why?
Because it is just, there's just everything about it. There's, clearly the underdog story, but there's the discipline, there's the motivation, and there's the drive, and there's the no stopping. And, there's not one guy, in my age sphere, whatever that may be, that doesn't move somehow, whether it's in their mind or in their loins, when that song comes on, and then you can go to Eye of the Tiger second, but there's nobody I know that doesn't flinch.
Yeah, that ending scene is great.
All right, Jim, this is gold. What do you think about a bonus track?
The fans want more. They're screaming for more Cory. So we opened up this episode with Street Fighting Man. A great track that I think reflects you, your nature, and your personality. But now, a song you think represents you right now in this moment. So Cory, lay it on us. What's the song?
Didn't I fill out a form that said the boy from New York
City? You did fill out a form, but you don't say you filled out a form. You just kind of play the role here, right?
Hey, you got to edit that out.
The boy from New York City. Why does that represent you?
Because one, I am. Two, it was a lot. It takes me back to my youth and how I felt.
Now, who
back
sang
in the
that?
Day. Manhattan Transfer.
So, I love that, but I've got some fun facts for you.
Please.
That song was originally recorded by the Ad-Libs in 1964.
And the year I was born.
Interesting. Then in 1965, the Beach Boys covered that song, but of course, in the Beach Boys way, they renamed it and called The Girl from New York City. And then it was covered again by the Darts in 1978, and then the one that you chose in 1981. So that's gone through some evolution of its own, and I think that is not only is it a cool song, and it does capture your nature, but I think it also is interesting how that song has evolved, and Cory Zelnik has also evolved, if I may be so bold.
Well, that's well kindly put.
And I think it adds a perfect close and a perfect note to your album. A big thanks to Cory Zelnik, the CEO of Zelnik Company. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for recording your album today.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Until the next time, in our recording, I'm Jim Lombardo. This is The Sounds of Success, where it's unscripted, unfiltered, and definitely unforgettable.